podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Cheetos Deja Tu Huella. Deja Tu Huella means leave your mark, and that's exactly what Latinos are doing. They're transforming the world around them, pushing boundaries with their unique perspectives. It's their superpoder. Join Cheetos and celebrate the heroes that are leaving their mark with the Deja Tu Huella program. You can also celebrate by checking out the new podcast, Batman Unburied, presented by Cheetos Deja Tu Huella. Visit Batman Unburied on Spotify to learn more.
At Vanguard, this is more than just a retirement plan. This is your cappuccino date in Italy, the beach house with the matching bicycles. It's your rental car down memory lane and weekends reuniting with friends from over the years. This is the future you imagined, and Vanguard is here to help you build it. Because at Vanguard, you're more than just an investor. You're an owner. Discover the value of ownership at Vanguard.com. Fund shareholders own the funds that own Vanguard. Vanguard Marketing Corporation, distributor.
The 1865 Match Report.
Hello and welcome to the last 1865 match report of the regular football season. League Two was a bit crazy, but in the Championship, Forest brought their season to a close with a 1-1 draw away at Hull City. Now, the most notable thing about the Forest lineup today was that it was very different to normal. 7 changes, so we had Samba in goal, a back three of Worrell with Figueiredo and Jonathan Panzo making his debut. At wing-back, we had Rich Larrier and Joe Lolly, and Cafu and James Garner were in the middle of the park, with Zinkernagel supporting a front pair of Alex Myton and Zande Silva. Now, I'm joined by Tom Newton. Tom, you're fresh back from the match. I didn't see it, but you have been there and you've experienced the hospitality of the good people of Hull and the good people, the good stewards of Hull City. So, first of all, did you have a good day?
Well, as away games go, it wasn't bad. Decent away crowd from Nottingham. I've got to say, Hull's catering, it's up there, very good. Yeah, it was a decent day. It was like final day of the season. We knew we had the playoffs in the bag. And it was a typical end of season game with obviously all the changes, what you mentioned. But no, on the whole, not a bad day out.
Okay, so let's talk about that team news. We knew that there were a few walking wounded, and the speculation was, will Cooper change things up so that he can give a rest to some of those players, or will he want to keep the momentum going? And obviously, as I mentioned earlier, it was very much a case of let's make those changes, let's protect the players who are carrying injuries. And after the match, he did say that out of the changes he made, the only one who wasn't really carrying a knock was Brennan Johnson. All of the others have got knocks or muscle problems or injuries of some kind. Ryan Yates wasn't even in the squad because of his shoulder problem. Steve Cook, obviously, his head was still cut open, but he'd obviously had the very emotional situation with his father, and obviously we wish his dad well. So when you heard the team news, what were your thoughts, Tom?
I wasn't surprised, to be honest. We knew there were going to be changes, but we didn't know how many changes there would be. And I think Steve Cooper is in the realm of he's damned if he does and damned if he's not, if he keeps basically his regular starting 11. So it was a matter of get some minutes in the players who are a bit on the periphery, fringe players. Then, but if he then played like the likes of, say, Yates, I know he wasn't in the squad, etc., and they got injured, he's going to have a bit of criticism going into 2 important games in the playoffs. So, yeah, it was expected, to be honest. So no real surprises. And it was nice to see Panzo get on the pitch because obviously we haven't seen him in a red shirt, at first team level yet.
Yeah, okay. And before we started recording, you also did say that with the changes to the team, it did kind of have that, the end of the pier, last day of the season, sunny day, nothing riding on the match in particular or nothing tangible because Forest were already in the playoffs and Hull were already, their position in the division was also secure. So, yeah, I mean, talk us through what the feel was. It sounded as if it was actually, it was a little bit flat, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think Forest fans just basically wanted a good day out in Hull, really. And then when the match started, it was a bit of a flat atmosphere. Flat atmosphere for especially the first half. Then the performance on the pitch was a bit flat. So it's a typical end of season game. And like you say, Hull were already safe. We didn't have a lot riding on it apart from positional reasons. But at the end of the day, 1-1. It's probably a fair result. Really, not a lot happened in the game until later in the game.
Okay. Were there any particular moments of excitement in the first half? I mean, the name that kept coming up on the radio commentary was their Iranian centre forward, Alaya Sayed-Manesh. It sounded like he was quite a busy player up front for the Tigers.
Yeah, he had a couple of openings, but Forest kept it pretty tight at the back. But I didn't even know who he was until you mentioned, because I was half expecting Tom Eaves to actually start the game, but obviously he come on. So, but I can't pronounce his name, so I'll let you say it again if you want to.
Yeah, Sayed-Manesh. And so he had what Sky Sports reported was the best chance of the first half when there was a little moment between Toby at the back and Samba. So the Iranian forward was able to try and get in there, but obviously it led to nothing.
Yeah, it's a bit worrying because before he was playing, Figueiredo, he looked pretty solid. Then he's had last few weeks off since Cook's coming to the side, and he played it. He just went back to his bit of indecisiveness in his play. That ball come over, and it's like, oh, what do I do with it? And 9 times out of 10, when a centre half who's the last line of defence hesitates, something bad happens. And thanks. They didn't score from it, but he's kind of, that just crept into his game. And I think there was another occasion in the second half where that happened, and he would have been better off just clearing it and without doing that, the striker nearly nipped in again. So it's kind of there was nothing really riding on the game, but you don't want to be doing that in the playoffs because the teams who are going to be playing Sheffield United are a lot better than Hull, you see. So you need to be on. You need to be concentrating 100% at all times in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things, going back to a discussion that we've had in the past. Toby is a decent championship centre-half, but you cannot argue that Steve Cook is not a massive upgrade in terms of just his ability, his concentration span, his leadership, his know-how. So Toby is a good championship centre-half, but most championship centre-halves have a mistake in them, and Cookie doesn't make as many as most championship centre-halves.
Yeah, and that just goes to show you that Steve Cook's played in the Premier League, so he is that type of calibre of player where Figueiredo's, no disrespect to him, but this is probably his ceiling as how far he's probably going to get unless he goes back to Portugal and obviously plays for a team like Braga, who's probably underneath Sporting, Benfica and Porto, so that's probably his level, but it's one of them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the only moment of note really for Forest, or at least the only one that I can remember off the top of my head, was Joe Lolly playing at left wing back. He cut in from the left-hand side and had a go with his right foot, which flashed past the angle of post and bar. It probably got a bit of an ooh from the crowd, but it wasn't massively threatening, was it? So what did you make of Lolly's performance? His first start in quite a while, playing in a slightly unfamiliar position. What did you make of him?
He was okay. He's quite intelligent player in terms of discipline, etc. But I just think in the last few months since he's come back from his injuries, I just think he's just losing that burst of pace what he had a couple of years ago, where he can beat a man, drop a shoulder, and then lash a shot in. I think that's just lacking from his game. Whether he needs a really good pre-season to get as sharp as he was a few years ago, that remains to be seen. But yeah, we all wish Joe Lolly can get back to the way he was.
Okay. So at half-time, it was 0-0. But for you as a fan at the ground, I don't know how connected you were with what else was going on within the division, because obviously of the other teams vying for the playoffs, basically they were all winning and we weren't. So how was that feeling?
I don't think it was too bad because we knew we was in the playoffs. I think if we was say 6th or whatever, and we had the jeopardy of if we didn't win this game or whatever, that we could drop out. I think it was no pressure for us really, and it was just a matter of like we knew we'd out of the 3 teams to play, we knew we was going to play. Stating the obvious, we knew we was going to play someone. So it was just one of those. Then it was going to be chopping and changing all afternoon. We thought, and at one point when the penalty went in by Brennan Johnson, we thought it was going to be Luton because I think that would have mean we finished 3rd. But now we've got Sheffield United, and we'll go again on Saturday afternoon.
You're listening to 1865, the Nottingham Forest podcast.
This episode is brought to you by Cheetos Deja Tu Huella. Deja Tu Huella means leave your mark, and that's exactly what Latinos are doing all across the country. They're rewriting the rules and pushing the boundaries in their communities to leave their own unique mark. They use their gift, their superpoder, to make an impact, whether it's through art, music, fashion, food, or something else. And Cheetos will celebrate what they're doing by shining a light on their transformative power. The Deja Tu Huella program celebrates those leaving their mark in Latino communities. You can also celebrate by checking out the new podcast, Batman Unburied, on Spotify. Batman Unburied is presented by Cheetos Deja Tu Huella. Visit Batman Unburied on Spotify to learn more.
Let's talk about the second half. You've mentioned that basically all the action happened right at the end of the half, but there were a couple of hairy moments beforehand, and the most notable one being when Keane Lewis-Potter, you'd mentioned that there'd been a couple of moments at the back, and one of those saw Keane Lewis-Potter go through in the right-hand channel, and he's a left-footed player. I think that was probably what saved Forest then, wasn't it? Because he hit it high and handsome over the bar. Yeah,
I was for a player of his calibre. I hadn't seen much of him, but I knew he was pretty decent, and I thought the net was going to... the net was going to ripple, but he blazed it over and nearly put the ball in the Humber. So, it was a bit of we got a let off there kind of thing, and yet again another hairy moment from our defence.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's one of those, isn't it, whereby Forest are playing a second-string team. Hull they know that their season is over, but I guess you don't want to lose your final match, especially when it's at home. So they were, trying their best to do stuff. And I think that if results elsewhere hadn't been going the way they were, and if Forest had already taken the lead, then maybe the substitutions that were made on the 65-minute mark might not have happened, because on 65 minutes, Steve Cooper, he did feel his hand was forced a little bit, and he took off Jonathan Panzo and he took off Xande Silva. 2 players who haven't had that many minutes, so we know that Cooper likes to take off players on the 65-minute mark. And he brought on Brennan Johnson and Sam Surridge, and that meant that Forest went to a 4-2-3-1 type formation. Am I right there?
Yeah, pretty much. And like you say, Cooper does like making a substitution around on 60th, 65th minute. Mm-hmm. And so it's never thought that with changes were going to be made. But I just think that with the players what played today, no disrespect to him, but if you just like add a Cafu in there to play with like a Garner but they're not bad. The decent players bring on, but when you have wholesale changes, so it's relatively a second string, and on second string for a reason. I just think because they haven't played as much together, I just think that we really lacked any rhythm in our play kind of thing. It was like the possession stats were decent without really doing anything on the Hull City goal. So yeah, it was one of those, like I said earlier, it's just a typical end of season game and just getting minutes in the players who we may potentially need for the playoffs. Yeah. And just as you'd mentioned possession stats, so let's contrast today with the Swansea match. So against Swansea, we had 30% possession and had 17 shots on goal. And today we had 61% possession, but we only had 4 shots on target. And even then, that sounds a little bit generous to me, doesn't it? Yeah. So bringing on those subs and the formation change, it did bring a little bit of extra impetus, didn't it? And it was Forest trying to get the result. And is Brennan, who was the player who probably was in the mix there. He had a shot which was parried by, a cross that was parried by Nathan Baxter with Sam Surridge trying to get on the end of it. But Baxter in the goal did a decent job. And then
Hull made their own substitution, so they brought on Tom Eaves, and they brought on, who else did they bring on? They brought on Tom Huddleston, that old favourite, and so they changed things up as well. And Tom Eaves, he's a big lad, isn't he? He's 6'5", I think, and therefore we know that he's got the capability of creating problems. And so he probably could have done better when he had a chance from a cross by Lewis-Potter.
Yeah, he couldn't. But I just think, no disrespect to Tom Eaves, I just think he's one of those run-of-the-mill championship strikers where he probably, I don't know how many goals he's got this season, but he seems one of those where you stick him on with like the last 10 minutes to go just to cause a bit of havoc. And they say, let's say he's not as good as like an Andy Carroll or a Kiefer Moore, but he can cause the odd problem. So.
Yeah. Well, Forest made their final substitution, which was to bring off Richie Larrier and bring on Jed Spence. I'm again assuming that's to preserve the legs of Larrier, who hasn't really got many minutes under his belt. How did he do as right wing back?
Yeah, he did okay. I mean, he's not as good as Spence, but he has got a bit of an engine on him, and he did get himself up and down the field quite a few times. He's just probably like lacking that attacking quality as Spence has got. I think Spence is more direct. What I did notice in the game is that when Larrier picks up the ball, he likes passing it inside, but it's like when Spence picks up the ball, he like passes it into Johnson or whoever, like Garner, then he will bomb on to get the return ball. And Larrier doesn't really do that. Spence is like looking to get to the byline every time, and Larrier doesn't do that. But that's not saying he's a bad player. I just think he's slightly different to Jed. And we all know that Jed Spence is our A-lister when it comes in the right wing-back position.
Yeah, and also let's not forget that, Spence and Brennan have got a whole season of playing that way, similar to Matty Cash and Joe Lolly a couple of years ago, where it's something that they've kind of got better at doing as they've got more matches under their belt. And old Richmond, he hasn't had the chance to do that as yet. So let's skip to stoppage time, because that's when everything happened. Forest won a penalty. To you, did it look like a clear penalty when it was given? Yeah,
because Tom Huddleston, he intercepted the ball and then he kind of like lost concentration slightly, and Surridge just got in front of him, and as he tried to kick the ball away, he's obviously got Surridge and not the ball. So yeah, it was a definite penalty. Probably because he's only just come on, I don't think he got to speed with the game, even though it wasn't the quickest game. But I think that just like lack of concentration and obviously thinking the ball was there and didn't see Surridge just nipping, and then it was a definite penalty. And Tom Huddleston, for all his histories of where he's been in the past, I don't think he's got no qualms about that penalty. I think it was a stone waller.
Yeah, as Huddleston has never been A, quick, or B, good. His turn, he's always had the turning circle of an oil tanker, hasn't he? So it was one of those clumsy moments, wasn't it?
Yeah, and seeing Hull's not the whole Humber Estuary is not a million miles away from the stadium, I bet, like he says, if an oil tanker's on spins around there, it's not quicker than Tom Huddleston is at the moment. I think he's about 35 now, so he's got a lot of miles on the clock now, and it ultimately showed this afternoon when he come on.
Yeah, might need to put a bit of oil in those joints. So it was a penalty. Brennan Johnson took it. Were you ever in doubt?
You're always in doubt, aren't you, when it comes to a penalty? Because obviously he missed the one at Bramall Lane. But he stuck it in the same corner what he put the penalty in against West Brom the other week. So 1-0, and you think that was the game's done. But then defensive naivety comes to bite Forest again, and they put the ball in the box and get something on the end of it, and it's 1-1.
Yeah, so it's worth pointing out that Forest thought they'd won it, and you could tell because Brennan did something I've not seen him do before. He ripped his shirt off and ran right towards the crowd. He was obviously thinking, that's the one, we've got third place. And listening at home, I was going, yeah, we've got third place. And Steve Hodge was going crazy, going, we've got third place. But just, a minute later, Lewie Coyle put in what was basically a speculative cross towards the box. It bounced through. He was about 30 yards out when he put the cross in with his wrong foot. It curled in. It's been credited to Keane Lewis-Potter because he slid in and apparently did get a touch on it. Although initially everyone thought it was Coyle's goal. It's a messy one to concede, even regardless of the circumstances, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we was quite low down in the away section, so we couldn't see it as having like an advanced position. But yeah, when the ball went in, and then like you say, it's a messy one. And I just think because Forest wasn't 100% today in terms of like being a slick performance, concentration, as we've mentioned, with the indecisiveness in the play wasn't there. So yeah, it was just a bit of defensive naivety, a messy goal, and I don't want to like do Forest down, but it's kind of a sense of inevitability. We just thought that if Hull do get like one chance here, they're going to stick it away, and that's what happened.
Yeah, interesting you say that as somebody who's at the ground, because I think that's the general feeling that I had throughout the match is like it had that, like I say, it had that end of season feel, and we've all been to matches where it has, a sunny day, and I say both teams kind of know that their ultimate fate is decided, although there might be different positions in the table. And yeah, you just think, well, it's going to be a bit messy and a bit loose. Anyway, that's enough for the time being from you, Tom. I shall come back to you in just a second. But first of all, let's hear from a Hull fan on his views of the match.
Hello, everybody. Hull City fan and YouTuber or Grandpa Joe here, just giving you my thoughts on the game from the Hull City perspective. Thought in the first half we started really well. Well, for the first 10, 15 at least, then we went into doing what we usually do. During the rest of the first half, start well and then just sit back and defend. Let the other team have all the ball. And we did that. We defended well against you. You were pretty much constantly in our half. But then towards the back end of the first half, we pulled it back a little bit. But the first half was pretty boring on the whole. You had a lot of spells of pressure, but there was no real clear-cut chances, in my opinion. Second half, I thought we were on top. Thought Hull City were on top. The penalty, I was at the other end, so I didn't see it. From where I was, it looked accidental. However, I've seen replays and I've spoken to my friends who were sat right opposite it, and it was definitely a penalty. But then it was a really, really well taken penalty by Brennan Johnson, and that away end looked absolutely mental. I can discredit Forest fans for wanting to get in our home end and stuff, and I'm sure there were still some fans in there that just kept it very quiet. But in that away end, it was bouncing. But in the second half, I thought we were on top. We should have had... Keane Lewis-Potter should have scored. He took an extra touch, which narrowed down his angle and allowed Bryce Samba to narrow down the angle a little bit more for him, and he blazed it over the bar into the south stand end. Then there was a chance Tom Eaves had where he went for goal with a header and put it into the side netting instead of pulling it back across the box. Then the strike from Lewie Coyle was incredible. The goal's been credited to Keane Lewis-Potter at the moment, but I was sat right behind it. And Keane, for me, Keane didn't touch it. So, yeah, it was an interesting game. And obviously you've now got Sheffield United, I believe it is, in the playoffs. So that'll be a tough game for you. All the best, though. Brennan Johnson looked fantastic when he came on. Jed Spence was really, really quick. And you can see why he's impressed for you on loan this season. And will he be a player you're looking to get permanently? Let me know. Anyway, last game of the season. We're done. We're on to bigger and better, hopefully, with the new ownership and the first full transfer window for this summer. So that could be a very, very nice one. And obviously for you, there's the playoffs, the small matter of potentially getting into the Premier League. I wish you luck for that. It's going to be very tough. There's some good teams in the playoffs. So yeah, thank you very much. I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you very much, Joe. Okay, Tom, coming back to you, you've told us what you thought about the match itself. Now, what that means is that as of the end of the regular season, Forest finish in 4th position. Now, listener, we're going to be discussing this in a load more detail in our end of season podcast / playoff preview. Easy for me to say. And that will be in your feeds during the week. So stick with us and we'll talk about that in more detail. But yeah, ended up being Huddersfield in 3rd position on 82 points, Forest in 4th on 80 points, and we will be playing Sheffield United in the playoffs, who finished in 5th position on 75 points, ahead of Luton, who also had 75 points, but an inferior goal difference. So overall, let's just cut to the chase, Tom. We'll talk about what we think about the playoffs in a few days' time, but Sheffield United, we've been there before. Some of us have got PTSD about it. Overall, 4th position now, when you consider where Forest were 7 matches into the season, is beyond our wildest dreams, isn't it?
Yeah, and it could have been even better if we got the right result against Bournemouth, etc. But no, it's been, since Steve Cooper's come in, we've mentioned it, no end of times on match reports, monthly pods and things. It's an unbelievable achievement from where we was with the same group of players, apart from like the likes of Keenan Davis, who's coming in, Steve Cook, and obviously Richie Laray, but not to a greater extent to what contribution what Cook and Davis have brought to the side. But it's an outstanding. I think when Steve Cooper come in, it just, we were staring relegation in the face in terms of how we started, and it was just a matter of just keep us in the league. But after his initial start, it's like okay, let's consolidate. But we've gone beyond that to get into the playoffs, and obviously we nearly got an automatic. We was quite close, but let's not beat ourselves up about that, because if anybody said back in September you'll finish in 4th place, you would have snatched the hand off. Yeah. And yeah, it's been an absolute brilliant season, and hopefully we'll get the job done over 2 legs in the playoffs against Sheffield United, and hopefully, fingers crossed, toes crossed and everything else, at Wembley on Bank Holiday weekend at the end of May.
Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. So let's hope that there are 3 matches left of the season. And also, just another thing that you've touched upon already, I think today's match would have been very different if we had been able to get a result at Bournemouth, wouldn't it? Because the players who we didn't risk today, they probably it would have been that first choice lineup. Steve Cooper's got a very definite first choice kind of 15 or so players, hasn't he?
Yeah, and another thing, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, if the opportunity was there to get into the automatics today, if we had got the result against Bournemouth, and say we went gung-ho and got the win against Hull, etc., but ultimately fell short, it's one of those, you know, if, like, say, for example, Spence gets injured, Surge gets injured, then we slip into the playoffs. It's one of those, I know football's got like a ifs, whats and maybes, but I think, with how the season's gone and everything else, we can't be too downbeat of not getting an automatic, because, like I said, this is an absolute bonus.
Yeah, and as you say, you can't blame the manager for being a little bit cautious in that respect. Okay, so I'm just going to say thank you very much to you, Tom, and thank you to Joe for giving us the Hull City perspective on this. My name is Rich Ferraro, and thank you to you, listener, for joining us for our match reports throughout the season. As I say, we're going to have a season review / playoff preview. I still can't say it. A season review / playoff preview, which will be in your feeds during the week. And we will obviously be reporting on the playoff matches as they happen. So once again, thank you very much for listening. We'll be in your feeds very soon.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
It takes a lot of ingredients to fix or build a car, like cooking, but without the frozen dinner easy way out. eBay Motors has 122 million parts. It's always the right fitment, so you can follow any recipe to a T. Whether it's a vintage Italian coupe that's classic like Grandma's meatballs or a German luxury car that's as complicated as Oma's rouladen, to cook up something great in the garage, use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.